super, you know what, the story I like tell my students and stuff when I teach and stuff is like, when I went to Morton's studio, like Joan was just chilling there in their hallway, like not even like a really notable spot in the hallway. They have a giant picture framed of Morton, Joan, and John Cage sitting on the beach together, like chilling on the beach, like family port, like really, really just the most kind of, I was like kind of just blown away by this photo because it's not one you like ever see anywhere, but it was like really high resolution, really cool picture. And yeah, and it was like, it was easy to like forget that they're like, these are like the people who like, you know, the books are written about, that you're
like private press records. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but essentially like stuff that, you know, you're Joe Schmo in 1979 and you want to make a record and you got $1,000 or however much it cost, you know, and you go into some studio and record it and then pay a company essentially to press a bunch of records for you, and then you sold them at your concerts or at the restaurant gig that you had or like whatever, right? So it was really unlikely that I was ever going to find a bunch of Sun Ra or a bunch of Blue Note records like in the field, you know, at some thrift store. Obviously, that absolutely does happen, but seemed unlikely. What was much more likely, and still is much more likely, is like finding these old private press records that people think are nothing because they don't look like anything, because the cover is usually not color, or a lot of times wouldn't be color because they didn't want to pay for color. So it'll be like either a monochrome thing, like one color, or black and white or grayscale or whatever. And it's a bunch of weird outsider kind of music. And some of those records are like quite valuable in terms of something that I paid like 50 cents.
Here's a question from me to you as somebody with Eurorack is, and Grant and I have played shows together, and he has his music easel, and it sounds so good, and I feel like it sounds different than the Eurorack. Like, what, I guess you like the Buchla stuff better. Like, what do you like more about the Buchla stuff than you did about Eurorack?
I like the fact that the CV and the audio are separated. That's a major difference that oftentimes doesn't get mentioned when people are asked that question, I've noticed. And I just like obviously the West Coast elements, you know, that kind of make it up sound-wise, like the low-pass gates, the complex oscillators, the function generators that aren't just static envelopes that you can actually, like, you know, control the attack and decay and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, I like that it's kind of geared toward making bleeps and bloops, I guess. It's kind of you know, my sound is more of this like vintage sci-fi computery bleep bloop bleep bloop bloop, you know. And
I've got a quad set up at home now, or in this room. I've got two over here too.
Yeah, you definitely, out of all my Buchla buds, were somebody who
it's like, a subcategory of Synth Friends.
Really adamant about
he's got to compartmentalize. Like, that's fine.
Really adamant about going quad. And so
I respect that. Yeah, I feel like it's, for as consistent as Don Buchla was with like making that an option, or, you know, putting focus on that it was like, I like try and think about like the core tenets of like what makes up a, you know, like a Buchla system and stuff, and like quad was one of them.
How do you all save your module parameters and connections so you can easily recreate the same sounds? Like a notebook of settings you write down, or snap a pic? Like with the DAW, it's so simple to click and save your settings. Yeah.
That's the beauty and the frustration. I don't.
Yeah.
And like, I'll find something great. It's like, oh, I'm done. All right, I'm going to unplug it, and like, I'll try to recreate it. And you never can.
You can't.
I have like, you know, sequencers and stuff that save the sequences and all that, but that's like the beauty of it, because you're always kind of like, you can get close, get a similar feel or language, but it's always, for me, starting from scratch.
VHS sounds amazing. I think most people don't know that, but it's like the best. People used to master to VHS tapes before, like when DATs were like really expensive. They do sound fantastic, and I played in a band in my 20s, you know, so this is back in the mid 2000s, and we ran all our backing tracks off of VHS tapes because they just sounded so good live. And computers like weren't really there yet. And we like tried CDs and we were like, the VHS stuff is so much better. So
yes, you have that like OG analog cred. You were playing VHS backing tapes live.
About, in my opinion, of modular synthesis is that like you could get 50 people to put together 50 modular systems. And even if you told them they all had to be the same size, they would all be completely different. And you would probably, not literally you, but one person would choose to interact with it in one way and another person would choose to interact with it in another way. And we could all produce a sine tone at a certain frequency, but someone might decide to code it in Super Collider and someone else might decide to use a module and someone else might decide to use a tone generator. And that is so exciting to me because it's like, it just opens up this like really personal way of programming or thinking about your instruments.
I have one TD3.
So we're in the same club.
So do we, and I love it, man.
Well, I just figured, as a stay-at-home mom, I should definitely have that acid sound for when my friends come over. Just that sick acid line for the PTA.
Yeah, you play it for the pizza man when he comes
wow.
and drops off the pizza. He just shows up and you get like a little like...
Just sitting there going...
And the first year that really started was 1980, which was Tom Baker's last season. It was the first season for a new producer. They went from having Dudley Simpson and his little orchestra doing the incidental music. The new producer says, no, we're going back to the Radiophonic Workshop. What's the Radiophonic Workshop like these days? They still existed, but they really hadn't been doing anything other than sound effects for Doctor Who for years. At this point, the Radiophonic Workshop, these guys were getting in synthesizers like the Yamaha CS80, Harp 2600. And one of the things the producer did, we're going to touch the Doctor Who theme for the first time, in 20 years. And you, Mr. Peter Howell, you are going to make a new version of the Doctor Who theme using synthesizers. As someone who can't watch Doctor Who, but is just listening to it, the thing that really jumped out at me all of a sudden was, what is this music? Why does this sound so different?
Gus playing the tape loop is like speaking.
I'm gonna do a bliss for that. Yay! Well, I feel like it's
being weird with synths outside. Hers is synth picnic and mine is like synth noise picnic because I feel like that's a little bit like more my realm of music, and so that's kind of like what I wanted to bring into like my space. Like added a bunch of people to an Instagram group and hey, do you want to go to the top of a mountain and play and noise music with me? And like 5 people showed up and it was
hell
great.
Yeah. Wow. Were you like lugging like a PA system up a mountain? Like
I have like a little portable Roland speaker or amp.
Oh yeah, sure. Same.
It's battery powered.
Oh, that's cool.
So I brought that. It has like 4 inputs. So this was the second one, and this was at an abandoned prison in Western Mass.
Whoa, that's so wow. Okay, I'm into
Dude,
this.
that's like Kesha's show.
Someone from the like first one was like, "Hey, this is a really cool spot to go play for the next one," and everyone was like super into it because like abandoned prison, yes. So it was a really cool spot. Like there's we set up in I think it was the like vegetable cellar of the prison. So it's like this big tunnel area.
It's just like we were talking about going into caves and doing weird synths.
Yeah.
People got knocked off in the vegetable cellar. The vegetables would cover up the smell.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's haunted.
People who were in competitive spaces or intense school then migrate to ambient because it's just like one thing for a very long time. You don't have to worry about if it's complicated. It's the inverted, like everything you learn in school and when you're trying to compose, it's not complicated, it's not original. It's structures, and then ambient is just you can do a whole album on one chord.
Circuit bending probably was my first like. My parents bought me one of. Do you remember? I think you can maybe still find them, like how, like electronic sets, like how to, like you can learn, they have these springs and then you bend the
do you
springs.
mean the thing we have?
I bet
yes.
you would have one of these.
We do. Yes, like
Yeah,
99 like things to do
Yeah.
with this kit, this circuit
You
kit.
could make an FM radio. You could make a burglar alarm. That's what I wanted to make when my sister would break into my room or whatever. So it was like, but when you get a battery starve, that's when I learned about a battery starve, right? Like when that battery started dying in there, like the timbre of that burglar alarm. And I was like, that's kind of rad. And it's annoying to, which when you're that age, you want to annoy people.
I am a fan of King Crimson and Robert Fripp, who is the mastermind of this band. And back in '73, he recorded his album, his first collaboration with Brian Eno, way back before Eno coined the term ambient.
Right.
And it's just his guitar playing through two Revox tape recorders, tape loop recorders in a combination, because the tape loop, I mean, you probably know the story, but the tape loop goes from one to the next and somehow there's endless feedback. And this kind of guitar ambient is something that influenced me so much when I first heard the album years ago.
Exactly.
Hardware, I recommend like either the Behringer Neutron or the is it the, I always forget the Moog, the 37, the sub 30. Come about the little rack mount one that looks.
That's
like,
Mother 32. That is Mother 32. Yeah. He's right.
The reason I recommend either one of those is you have like a lot of functionality in there, and then if you go and get books, you can make cool sci-fi sounding patches and weird stuff with it. And right out of the gate, you can, especially with the Behringer. I have one, and you can plug it directly into USB. So if you just have a laptop, you don't have a sound and a MIDI or any of that.
Yes.
You can plug headphones right into the back. You've got headphones, and you can start tinkering away, sending a loop or whatever. So that's what I recommend, is that. And then you can, of course, if you decide to go forward, you can go buy a case, drop it in the case, so now the case doesn't look stupid with only one module or two modules in it. You've got a whole voice, and you can go, this needs an LFO, or this needs another filter, or this needs, whatever, and you can start building your system. And
I like it.
And
That's brilliant.
It makes it a lot easier, because you're spending under $1,000 to get a whole voice, and there's no way you could do that. Well, there's no way to get as good of a setup, I would say, by just buying individual modules.
I have the third edition, which was 1949. The full title is Cybernetics, or Control and Communication in the Animal and the Machine. So feedback, cybernetics was all the rage. And then in 1967 came John Lilly and programming and metaprogramming in the human biocomputer. That's 67, 68. Then in 72, 73, we get programming. What is it? Programming and metaprogramming. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. The electroorganism and operation directive for the music easel. So I just love this thread from Norbert to John to Don and Alan Strange, who wrote the manual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.